Hi, welcome to Fiberchats. My name is Irina. I'm the host here. And my guest today, I met at Swiss Yarn Festival, and I'll tell you the story of how we've met because it's a funny story. But Anne-Sophie Chiarello-Bell, welcome to my channel.
Thank you very much. Thank you
You're
for
the,
having me.
you're the designer behind Alpine Stitches. And if you guys don't follow her on Instagram, please click that subscribe button, follow button on Instagram, and check out Anne-Sophie's designs. But let me tell you the story of how we. So I came to Swiss Yarn Festival, and one of the first people I saw was Christoph, and he was wearing these short pants that it was absolute showstopper. I'll put the picture here. I interviewed him about that. And of course, I had to share it in my stories. And immediately I got DM from you saying, I'm the designer of those pants. I was like, okay, we have to meet. So that's how we met. Tell me, like, before we go into the whole Swiss Yarn Festival and the business side of that, tell me a little bit about your background story. Like, when did you even learn how to knit?
Oh, good question. Well, I learned in it from my grandmother, and the first thing I remember knitting was when I was 6, and she lived in a different town, so I would take the train by myself and go to her house and knit in this scarf, and I just loved it so much I couldn't stop. It was supposed to be a Christmas present for my mother, and it ended up being 2.8 meters long.
That's a generously sized scarf.
Because I just didn't want to stop it. So that's how I started, and yeah, it's been a love affair ever since. I'm into all sorts of textiles. Like, yeah, if it's got something to do with fiber, then I'm into it. If it's sewing, hand sewing, embroidery, knitting, a little bit of crochet, not too much anymore, but I used to be. Um, yeah, so it's sort of in my, I don't know, DNA in my
Well,
body. It's like a physical need.
talking
Yeah.
of your DNA, you coming from very textile oriented family. Tell me a little bit about the members of your family from previous generations who were involved in textiles.
Yeah, so like in my family, everybody was pretty much involved in textiles. So my mum's a handicrafts teacher, which is still being taught in Swiss schools, unlike
Really?
other places. Yeah. Um, her father had a tights manufacturing company, so that obviously involves textile. Um, then my mother's grandparents were master weavers on one side, so more the industrial side of textile production. And the women were really known for their knitting and sewing skills. So both my grandmothers and great grandmothers were known for making their husbands' shirts from scratch by themselves. And on the other side, they are tailors in 2 generations back. So it's just, yeah, like I was thinking about it yesterday. We were watching TV, me and my husband, and I didn't have anything to knit. And he always expects me to like watch TV. And I'm like, no, I need something in my hands. I need something to do. So yeah, I really think it's a physical need.
It is, and especially like I often get this thing when people come to me when they see me knitting in public somewhere and they go, "Oh, I have no patience for that." And
Yeah.
thinking, I have no patience for anything else. It gives me patience. Like I can deal with airplane delays, I can deal with annoying people because I have knitting in my hands.
Yeah.
It's actually like really meditative. It calms you down with any uncertainty.
Yeah. And
Well,
the idle hands is something I can't deal with. Like really, it drives me nuts. I need something in my hands, creating, crafting, just to feel that calm.
let's step away from that 280 centimeter long scarf. What were other projects that you remember like in your childhood? Like what was the memorable projects?
Does it have to be knitting or
No,
textiles in general?
anything.
So with my other grandmother, I think I must have been about 8. we made an entire wardrobe for my teddy bear.
Oh, wow.
Uh,
He was one
so
lucky teddy bear.
yeah, it's like, and I still remember the details. Like they had a yellow dress with little white lace frill, and yeah, she taught me to sew really, and that was very memorable. I still have the teddy bear. Sadly, I don't have his wardrobe anymore, but I still remember it fondly. And then yeah,
And at that time, there was no YouTube. I mean, you mentioned that
no.
in school they were teaching some of the
Mm.
handicrafts, but like, what was your learning process like? Did you look at the books? Was it all taught by older generations?
Yeah, it was all taught around me. So I did obviously have handicrafts in school, like everybody else, and it was my favorite subject. And my friends would tease me because everybody else hated it, and I was the only one like, "Yay, handicrafts!" So I advanced to like assistant teacher in second grade because I think I was the only one who had any enjoyment from it. But other than that, yeah, it was up to maybe the age of 20 or so. It was really just what was taught around me and seeing examples and practicing. I mean, so much of craft is just the skill of doing it, right? Not just necessarily in a book.
And I find it also like that's one conversation I wanted to have with you because in a lot of cultures, knitting is like parallel to sewing. So like you have to
Mm,
understand the garment construction to understand how
yeah,
the knitted garments are done. And I find that in the US specifically, like a lot of people just lacking this basic knowledge, understanding
yeah,
the construction. And so we need the pattern for every step of the way. Whereas,
mm,
like, I remember hearing interview with Jorge Locatelli, and people were asking if she's as popular in Argentina as she's in the US. And she said, no, because in Argentina they can just knit, you know?
yeah.
Like they don't need the
They
pattern.
could just do it. Yeah.
Um, do you find that because of the culture in Switzerland and because the handicrafts are taught there, people have better understanding of the construction and more people know how to do proper construction for the garments?
Yeah, I mean, I think there is definitely more of an understanding of the craft involved and also the skill needed, like because every child in Switzerland still today has to sit through 6 years of minimum of handicrafts.
Wait, 6 years. Ah, it's a long
Yeah,
program. Wow.
yeah, it's all of primary school, although it is changing, like it's being kicked out of the curriculum and replaced by, I don't know, AI, IT skills, or which is also important, but I still think it's really, really important to learn what your hands are capable of. And yeah, but what you mentioned about the way that sewing and knitting is connected, I think that's really important because we talk a lot in my family, me and my mother especially, about construction and how the 2D turns into 3D.
Right.
So that I think that's where the two overlap. And for me, knitting and sewing are such different and intertwined skills because with the sewing, you already have your fabric, right? That's already
Right.
done for you. And then you need to think about construction of, again, this 2D, 3D change. Whereas with the knitting, you create as you go. And it's much more, well, all encompassing in terms of construction, right? Because you have to do all the constructing as you craft.
Right.
But yeah, I think if you're like, to answer your question, I think if you're further advanced in your handicraft studies in Switzerland, then definitely yes. But a lot of people that knit here, I find, came to it again later. So they learned the basics in school and they can still draw on that, but then they need something that sparks their interest that draws them back in
Right.
later.
Well, have you ever stopped knitting? Was knitting always part of your life, or did you go through periods of time when you didn't do it?
Yeah, I definitely had periods of time where I didn't knit much, but then I would sew more. So it's always one or the other. Ideally both, but yeah, when there are times when it's a bit like two meandering rivers where one has a bit more water and the other much less, and then they intertwine again, and something else gets created out of that. But there was a long time, sort of my early 20s, where I was much more into sewing and couture and hand sewing and historical sewing techniques and pattern making and all that. That was
Well, I've heard
much bigger
that
then.
you made your own wedding dress.
Yeah, I did. Well, actually, I made three, but
For
the
free.
main event, the
Okay,
main
tell me that
event.
story. I want to know in all the details.
Yeah, so it was just always, this childhood dream. I mean, so many girls, I think, still dream of their wedding dress. Um, yeah, so for me, that was a big thing, and I've just always wanted to obviously get married to the right person. That's an important element, and then make my own wedding dress. And I achieved that last year. It took about a year, and I think about like maybe 12 meters of fabric. But yeah, it was a beautiful, beautiful dress,
So
and
did you have that
inspired.
picture in mind when you were a kid of like what's your wedding dress is gonna look like? Or I think you mentioned that
Yeah,
it was like based on some of the historical costumes, right?
yes, it was based on the 18th century robe à l'anglaise, which is a specific type of dress pattern that they wore with lots and lots of pleats, especially at the back and in the skirt. And it's actually a relatively simple construction if you're into pattern construction, because with the pleats you have a lot of flexibility to make it fit your body.
Mm.
Um, and I mean the details I hadn't worked out when I was like 12, but I had the place figured out. So the castle church in Spiez, and I knew I wanted a blue dress that I make myself. So all of these things happened. So that's really it's very fortunate in that. Yeah, being
Well,
able to.
I I recently dipped my toes into the world of design a little bit, and I'm
Ooh.
still very reluctant designer. Like I still don't like calling myself a designer, but
Mm.
it's been happening. With you, I feel like you've been a designer since the age of 6. Like, was there ever a part when you didn't feel like a designer, when you didn't feel comfortable calling yourself a designer?
Yeah, yeah. Like I haven't. I'm not sure I'm comfortable now. I just I work against that discomfort and just do it. So how I describe it is that I just can't follow anybody else's pattern. I've tried, but then I end up changing, the yarn or the weight of the fabric and the size and the overall make, and just everything's different. So at some point I was like, okay, I just have to design my own things for my own use.
Right.
And then when I started teaching, people were approaching me and asked me, well, can I buy this design? It's like, no, you just, I'm teaching you how to design. You just make your own, right? But lots of people, it seems to me, want somebody else to do this for them, or just like that finished pattern and are actually able to follow instructions and then, replicate something unlike me.
Well, I always
So
compare it with the being a pianist versus being a composer. Like you can be an amazing pianist and have zero interest in composition, or you can be a
yeah,
composer but not a great pianist. Like you can have brilliant ideas,
yeah,
or you can be both, right? So there is no right or wrong. Like it's what tickles your fancy, basically. So,
yeah,
and I can see from both sides, like from the side of my brain that wants to adjust the pattern to fit me better and to do what I want and to add something to it and to understand how the brain of this particular designer works versus different design.
yeah,
But I also understand the comfort of just following somebody else's pattern and knowing the result I'm going to get at the end of it without the uncertainty of like trial and error.
Yeah. And with a good pattern, that's supposed to really work, right? You're supposed to sort of be able to, in a certain sense, enter the brain of the designer and end up with sort of a copy of it, right? That you've made yourself. But I just, yeah, what I'm saying is I have a complete inability to do that as a knitter myself. So that's how I sort of slid into the designer category of things, but it still makes me very uncomfortable because I'm like, I'm just knitting. That's yeah.
Well, how
And
about
I'm not,
teaching? Because teaching is also where you put yourself in the position of an expert. Is that
mm.
uncomfortable for you, or was that easy for you to know how to teach?
Well, I started teaching sewing classes, which is where I felt I had a bit more expertise. Um, but it was definitely a gradual thing, and I just noticed that I really enjoy it. I really enjoy teaching, and I suppose my um, I don't think that I'm necessarily an expert at it. I have experience in that field and I'd like to share that experience and with people attending knitting or sewing classes. It's very nice to have students who bring that interest with them in this technique or that particular knitting skill. So
Right.
it's just I'm just like an expert in something in a little part of something, not the whole field. So that breaks it down a little bit.
What do your student teach you? Because I feel like it's a two-way process. Like there is always
Yeah.
something you learn from your students as well.
Yeah, definitely. They teach me a lot. I mean, I think some of them are better knitters than I am, because they have so much expertise, so much practice. Um, yeah, patience. They teach me how to be able to actually follow instructions and just different perspectives and different backgrounds. So, like for example, there was a lady in one of my Fair Isle classes who came to a 3 day Fair Isle workshop to learn, but she was already perfect at it. And she said she'd been taught by her mother, and she would weave in with every single stitch,
Mhm.
which is something that I personally don't think is necessary. But there are, different opinions. It's not exactly science, and there's only one answer to this, right? And she just sort of needed confirmation that her way of knitting is right. So she definitely taught me, a very different approach
Right.
to stranded color work.
Well,
Yeah,
let's talk about your love of Fair Isle because the
yeah,
pants that I was referring to that Christoph was wearing at the Swiss Yarn Festival and that was absolute showstopper were in Fair Isle motifs. Like, tell me a little bit about your discovery of it and
yeah,
why is it so close to your heart?
yeah. Well, how how I discovered, let's call them Shetland crafts, or Shetland knitting. I cannot entirely remember, but it was about 16 years ago, and I heard of Shetland lace initially. I was just really fascinated by the fineness of it, the skill needed, and the history, and just all of these different aspects of it that really drew me in. And then it was only actually after I knitted some Shetland lace and sort of delved into that I discovered Fair Isle at all and stranded color work. So it was a bit atypical, my interest in Fair Isle because yeah, I come sort of from the lace side of things
I
rather
I do
than
the same. Like I discovered
yeah,
Shetland lace like 6 months into my knitting journey.
yeah,
Yeah.
cool.
And I came to
Yeah,
Fair Isle like much later, actually. And
yeah. So what I love about Fair Isle is how it's what I would call knitter friendly. How you can work much more in the round, two colors, not like, for example, Bohu's knitting with, I don't know, 4 or 5 colors in a round, and none of that, and steeking and being able to sort of connect the sewing aspect with the knitting aspect. So, and obviously the color, like, yeah, that's what what was so fun about those trousers I made for
I mean, to
Christoph?
me, it's also like fascinating to watch Shetlanders blend colors because it's the most incredible process. Like I find that it looks almost uh like watercolor. There's
Yeah,
such
yeah,
like
like painting.
subtle
Yeah,
differences. Like they paint with color for sure. So it's
yeah.
always fascinates me.
It's really interesting you mentioned painting because I've just returned to Shetland. 10 days ago, I came back.
Oh, really?
And yeah, sort of, I need to do Shetland immersions, preferably once a year if I can fit it in. And I was staying at a place I always go back to, and the lady who runs the place with her partner, she said, "Well, we met 7 years ago, and there was this painting you mentioned that you really wanted to knit. How is that going?" And it's like, wow, it's a good memory. It's not going very well because of just it's too complex, and she really encouraged me to pursue it. So now I've knitted a swatch, and I think it's much further in the design process now because there is this one painting. Yeah, I can send it to you if you want to see by Swiss painter Hodler, and it's just the most beautiful thing, and I really, really want to knit it. So that's definitely coming up. Actually painting with knitting.
Well, let's talk a little bit about your design process. How does your head works? Like, do you sketch first? Where do you find
Yeah.
inspiration? Like, what strikes that initial idea for your project?
Yeah, it's usually sketching. And I mean, inspiration, I think that's the same for, I assume, for every designer. It can come from anywhere, just that initial spark. It could be a moment in a film or going for a walk or something in a conversation. But usually it's something that my mind sort of grabs hold of and then won't really let go. And it's sort of in the background and then it starts to develop. And then there is usually a sketch of some description. With color and Fair Isle, it's often a photograph because I just find those color combinations in landscape, they're often so striking and strong and much much stronger and sort of powerful than if you just go into a yarn shop and you start picking wool. So that's where I like to start with color designs.
When you and I talked before we started this interview,
Yeah.
sort of mentioned that I feel like we have this connection, you and I, where like my grandmother taught me how to knit, and I didn't knit for decades after that. But
Mm.
every time I put my hands on the needles, I feel like she's somewhere around me. Like I feel this connect
Yeah.
between the generations, between like the crafters of previous generations. I'm thinking of
Yeah.
like, what would happen if somebody like my grandchildren will find one of those pieces that I needed, what will they think? And you mentioned also that for you it's very important that feel of connection through history
Mm.
or like previous generations. Do you feel it more with Shetland knitting? Because I feel like there it's like this is the center of the knitted universe somehow for me.
Yeah. Definitely is. I mean, I don't have a family connection to Shetland,
Right.
um, which is sad. I'd love to have one, but I
I
don't.
mean,
So
you know what? I was just talking to Jamison and Smith at H&H, and I was like, I feel like I don't know why, but like in my previous life, I definitely was born in Shetland.
yeah, exactly. I was like a lace knitter, somehow in the 1880s or
Yeah.
so, somewhere in Shetland. Yeah. Well, I wish, but so I don't have like I can't make a claim to having that family connection with Shetland at all. Um, but yeah, I mean, I think it's something to do with passing on this knowledge and this crafting knowledge, and like we talked about before, it's not in literature, it's not in academic research so much. I mean, starting now, but most of textile crafting knowledge is handed down, not exclusively, but mainly from woman to woman, right? in all sorts of cultures. And I do think there is this wealth of knowledge and experience that is really important to pass on and to treasure. And yeah, I do feel like I'm tapping into that when I'm, especially when I'm in Shetland, but not only, like I've started to knit with my 3-year-old. She's really into it. So let's see what happens. But yeah, it just really it is part of definitely my identity as a person, as a woman, as a knitter, as a crafter. And in Shetland, I feel like you turn around and there's like yarn heaven, like around every corner. It's like, in I went to Unst to the Heritage Centre. That was a wonderful place to be, and everybody's just so into it, and there seems to be more of an awareness of how important it is to treasure it and to pass it on.
Right.
Yeah,
Well, what I love about your Instagram account, you do these things, it's like Sunday story telling
yeah,
kind of thing. And one of those posts were about knit circles, basically. And it was a huge, big ordeal in Shetland where women would like
yeah,
together, knit together in the evenings, whether it's creating Christmas gifts or just making socks for the husband to go fishing the
yeah.
next day. Um, do you treasure that sense of community? Do you try to foster it around you?
Um, I do, although I have found that I'm not a very social knitter. Like I'm really I'm yeah, I'm very introverted. And for me, like my happy place is somewhere alone with my knitting and just going for it. But it is really nice because I think again, a lot of knitters may have this tendency, not all, but I think a lot of people do it maybe alone or it's not that community oriented. But then when you do come together as knitters, there is this wonderful spark and joy of sharing your craft with others and the admiration of it. So I did go to Wool Week and that was fun. Just I'm sure you've been.
No, I
And
haven't. That's like on my bucket list of things to do before I die.
yeah, definitely, definitely. So it's just this like there was this coming together of knitters from all over the place. Like there was this one lady I remember who came all the way from Japan with her hand spun, hand knitted Shetland lace. I just it's just very impressive, and they all converge. But yeah, I think I sort of fostered a community maybe through the classes and teaching and being online.
Yeah,
But
I feel like also like being online is not to be looked down at because like
hmm,
creates so many connections through
yeah,
Instagram and Facebook groups, and it's true connections. Like I had two friends from Netherlands
hmm,
online for like 7 years, and then I came to Netherlands in person and I met them, and it was like we knew each other for 7 years. It didn't
yeah,
feel awkward at all. It was like the best 2 days of my time in Netherlands. It was like
yeah, definitely.
friends. So I feel like it plays huge part.
Mm.
In today's day of a knitter.
Yeah, definitely. And also this space didn't exist, say, 20 years ago, right? So when I was knitting, learning to knit, developing my knitting skills, you couldn't go online and find like-minded people or ask them a question, how do I deal with this or this problem, or I've lost all my stitches, help, or I just want to have a little cry or whatever. Like you couldn't have this exchange, and now you do. And yeah, I mean, yes, social media has its dark sides, but I think that's a really, really positive, creative, wonderful side of it.
I want to ask you like one very controversial question before we go into the business side of it. Do you believe in lifelines? Do you insert lifelines into your Shetland lace?
No, I don't.
I was just thinking the my biggest disaster in knitting where I saw thousands of stitches running around like in every different direction was when I was knitting cobweb Shetland lace shawl, and my phone rang, and for some reason I knew it was telemarketers, but I still decided to get up and like run to the phone, and I dropped the shawl, it fell off the needles, and you could literally see those, and it was dark navy blues. So
Oh, oh, the pain. Oh, I feel it.
you would think that like it taught me a lesson, and ever since then I insert lifeline every 2 rows, and I don't.
No, honestly, I've never done it. But I've never had a disaster, so that's like that's my excuse. It's just it's never happened. So, I've been saved. But no, I do believe in swatching,
Oh,
which a lot of people
you take it
don't.
to the like one step further from me. I mean, I do believe in swatching when absolutely necessary and there is no way around it.
Well, define that. Like when
Like
is
if
it?
I if okay, like if I test knit for somebody and it's a sweater, I feel like I owe it to the designer because I
Okay,
do the test knit to swatch it. If I
okay.
if I just knitted that sweater for myself, I would probably live dangerously and try as I go, or like figure out as I go.
Oh wow, you're braver than me.
And like even
No.
if I do sweaters for myself, like I'll give you an example. I went 2 weeks ago to my local yarn store for a knit night, and I forgot the yarn that I was knitting with at home somehow. Like I skeined the new winded the new skein and I left it at home. So I came to the store with nothing to knit. And they just got a new shipment of this cotton and linens blend. And I was like, maybe I'll just start a new sweater. And so right
Mm,
there, the sweater was born. And like I knitted it
cool.
without ever swatching, from top to bottom. So it's,
Well, again, if you have the skill, that's great. I
I mean,
just
it's more of I don't know if it's more skill or believe in like what can possibly go wrong. You know,
optimism.
So talking of your long scarf, one of the first projects I made when I came
Yeah.
back to knitting as an adult, my youngest son asked me for a blanket. And I went to my local yarn store. I got what looked like a reasonable acrylic yarn back then and reasonable size needles. And I casted on what looked like reasonable number of stitches, and I was knitting for months, and like once I would, it was just like stripes of color, so like as
Yeah.
I ran out of color I would go and get another skein and like continue on the blanket. And when it came to like what I thought was a reasonable size for, I think he was like 7 or 8 years old at that time, so I was like, okay, that's like long enough. I started casting off, only to realize that what I thought is going to be the length was the width. And that was 9 feet. So, like somewhere around your. My entire family could fit into that blanket very comfortably.
Oh, that's a brilliant story.
So, you would think it would teach me to swatch, but yeah, no, still like to live dangerously.
Yeah, well, I am very strict with my students, so in my workshops, they always have to swatch and they always grumble. But I just ended up knitting everything at least twice
Right.
because I wasn't happy with it. So I think swatching is a shortcut for me to not have to knit everything twice because I end up not being happy with everything. And then I just like, nah, yeah, let's just start over,
No,
which still
it
happens.
makes absolute sense to me in theory. It
Yeah,
just
yeah, yeah,
comes to practice. Well, let's talk a little bit about how you found yourself in this business. Like, when did
yeah.
it stop being just a hobby and became a business?
Good question. I'm not sure it isn't a hobby anymore. It's still sort of in that transitional phase. Um, so I founded with two others. I founded a sewing atelier, so like a shop
Right.
um, in 2016 in Basel, and we were the three of us, and we had this sewing tailors business together, and that was sort of the first time that my textile side turned into an actual business. And then from then on, it just sort of kept changing. I was teaching sewing at the time there, and we sold our own collections and did alterations and everything that tailors do. And then I moved here to the mountains, and there wasn't really a viable way here to teach sewing anymore because I would need lots of sewing machines and space and students. It's very remote here. And there is this crafting center. It's actually it's an open air museum. It's called Ballenberg, which is quite a big deal in Switzerland. And they have crafting courses of all sorts. You can learn upholstery or knife making or you name it. And I approached them and said, I'd quite like to teach knitting. Would that be something you're interested in? I think it's a skill and it's a craft. And they took me on. And then I started to teach knitting classes, mainly Fair Isle and Shetland lace. Not because I'm such an expert at it, but because just here, nobody else really offers that sort of experience and teaches in German. And then it sort of grew from there with students saying, could I have this as a pattern? And I would, be in the workshop and drawing the patterns like on little pieces of paper. I'm like, yeah, this is what you do, and and this is the repeat, and you need these colors. And I just decided that that's a bit silly, and I should probably start writing it all up properly and publishing it. Yeah, and then I've been teaching at the Swiss Yarn Festival. I think it was my either the third, it was the third year, last year. And then it was the first time I had a stall there. So that was very exciting and new.
You also sell kits for the patterns.
Yes, I do for some of them. Because especially with the color work, then you have all the colors already in one place and you don't have to go out and do your own shopping.
Right.
Yeah, so that's good fun.
So where do you see it going in the future? Like, do you treat it as a business at this point? Do you have like a business plan, business idea?
Yeah, I mean, I have a me kind of business plan, as in I know where I wanted to go. I want to focus definitely on the things that I enjoy doing. And the main thing that I want to go into is to teach workshops that are a bit longer, so sort of more immersive, and to also offer it as a holiday package for people to come and stay. Because me and my husband, we have this other business that's also taking up quite a bit of our time, and we rent out holiday apartments. So we moved here. That was a big move 7 years ago. We moved to the Alps, hence it's called Alpine Stitches. And we just have the most magnificent view. Actually, I'd quite like to show you if you don't mind. Can I show you?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, because it's to die for. So that's our view.
You weren't kidding. That is to die for.
Yeah.
It's
So it's just
spectacular.
really pretty.
So right now you're offering all these classes and people can go on your website and see the classes that you're offering, and they can also schedule their stay near you.
Yeah, sure. I mean, this is all in development. We just bought a house next to the house we'd initially bought and renovated. And we have a holiday let in our house, but we need more space. So we bought another house and we are starting this project and renovating. And the goal is to have space for comfortably for about 8 people to come and stay and do like an immersive knitting Shetland lace
once it's set up, I'm gonna come. Like
okay,
one of your students. I would love that.
Yes, please. I'd love to have you.
Sounds like a great place to be and to learn and to work with what we both love,
Yeah, and especially, right now it's quite hot here, but in the cooler months it's a really, really good place to just sit and knit and enjoy the scenery and go for a little walk. It's fantastic.
That sounds really amazing. When it comes to Shetland lace, I feel like it's a bit of an Olympic sport for me personally. Like it's all started with, like a little bit thicker yarn, maybe like heavy lace, and then I went to thinner and thinner needles, and then at some point people were laughing and saying that I'm knitting with actual cobweb and toothpicks. Do you feel the same sort of like adventurous spirit of going thinner and thinner?
Yeah, I do. I mean, I I did give this quite a bit of thought recently, and I think what I really like about Shetland lace is sort of the extreme of it. I like the description as an Olympic sport. I mean, Olympic sport is also quite extreme, right?
Right.
You're not an amateur if you go to the Olympics. You know what you're doing and you train many hours every day, and your life orients or revolves around this goal of going to the Olympics. And yeah, I mean, it does take over. It takes a lot of time and skill and
I mean, I feel like also there is always this thought that of mindless knitting, of something you can do while you're watching TV, like you knit a sock, you don't need to look at your knitting. And for a lot of people, that's their meditative space. And there is absolutely
yeah,
nothing wrong with that. I find, however, for me, when I have something like Shetland lace, something that involves me paying attention at every stitch and making sure that they are not dropping and that I know where I am on the chart, that brings me to my meditative state because I forget about
yeah,
the worries in the world. Like I'm in the moment, I'm right there. It's just me and
yeah.
the place.
It focuses your mind, right?
Yeah. And
Yeah,
it's
that's
interesting how like all people who knit or craft, they're like so different, and like what relaxes one person stresses out somebody else.
yeah, yeah. But I can definitely relate to that because for me, if I just knit, stockinette stitch over, I don't know, 300 rounds, I'm bored, and it doesn't for me open up this feeling of flow in knitting and meditation and focus. Whereas, with a proper repeat and a pattern and something quite complex, that really focuses the mind.
Yeah.
And also I love the mathematical structure of it. Like, it's not usually talked about so much because I think knitting is sort of seen as easy and I don't mean that it necessarily complicates things, but it really does have a mathematical substructure to it, and that's just wonderful. Just how it all.
I mean, to me, it's like another interesting thing about Shetland lace or lace charts is that once you become comfortable with it, it's sort of like reading skills. Like
Yeah,
you first learn how to read, you learn to recognize the letters and what sounds they make, and then at some point your brain just like sees the word and understand that this is the word, and doesn't matter how
yeah,
the word, you don't read it by the letter. And with Shetland charts, like I find that the longer I'm doing it, the more my brain just recognizes it as a sequence of patterns. And I don't
yeah.
have to look at the chart every second. Like I just glance at it and I know the whole row. And it's really empowering feeling to know that
Mm.
like nothing can trip you, and it
Yeah,
doesn't matter
yeah.
how complicated.
You're in control of it. Yeah. I think it takes me usually about 10 repeats of something, and
Memorize.
then I've sort of got it in my hands. That's how I would describe it. It's like my
It's
hands know
interesting
what to
that you
do.
describe it like that because I noticed that especially with the edging, when I need the edging of
Yeah,
the shawl, it's probably about like some, depending on the complexity of the edging, it can be like from 3 to let's say 12 repeats before
yeah,
before I know what I'm doing. But then I'm thinking like, oh, I got it in my head. But the reality of it is like I can think about something else, like my mind
yeah,
wanders and my hands know what they're doing.
yeah, exactly.
It's
And also, it's also in the pattern. Like what you described, once you understand the chart, and I mean, that's quite a modern way of describing knitting, right? Of writing a pattern with the charting. But once you see it, for me, it's just that's I'm a visual learner. So once I've seen that and I've understood it, it totally makes sense for me in the stitching as well.
Right.
And I don't have to, I mean, I still refer to the chart just to not make too many mistakes and knit backwards all the time. But just the flow of it, makes sense. It goes, it's what, 4 types of stitches in Shetland lace, if you really break it down, right? I mean, it's not that complicated. It's
Right.
very fine and it's complex, but the stitching itself isn't hard, which is something I keep telling people that are interested. You mentioned it before we started recording, people coming up like, how do you have the patience to do this? And how do
Right.
you have the skill to do this? And I was like, it's not that complicated.
So one
And it
stitch at
doesn't
a
take that
time.
long.
Yeah,
Yeah,
for sure. And I feel like in knitting, it's almost always like this. Like a lot of techniques have this scary reputation, like sticking, like I don't know, the Shetland lace.
yeah,
And when you actually get to it, there is nothing scary about it. So
yeah.
sometimes not knowing that it's supposed to be scary is half of the solution for just doing it. But I also love the fact that, like, I've been knitting now for 7 years. And I find that every single day I'm still learning something new. I'm learning the
Yeah.
way people knit, some new techniques, some new ways of thinking about knitting. Do you find the same? Because, like, you've been doing it since you were 6. Do you still learn something?
Oh yeah, definitely. Like, and there are endless combinations of things, of different patterns of cables. I'm really interested at the moment in these sort of more Japanese, or quite prevalent in Japan, those patterns where they combine elements of cable knitting and lace knitting. I find that really fascinating. And then it's a different yarn and it's different again. And also the many different ways that people knit. Like for me, I knit continental, and just seeing the other ways, say in England or in Shetland, that way of knitting I already find fascinating, and I can't do it. Like, I'm practicing, but I'm rubbish at it. So yeah, definitely there is a so this knitting world is endlessly huge, and it's as big as as there are people knitting it, because everybody brings their own perspective and experience to it. And yeah,
For sure.
I don't feel like it's at an end at all.
Yeah. Well, I'm so glad we got to chat today and I got to know you a little bit better and talk about your future. And my mind is on fire because I feel like we have to do something together. I
Oh
can
yeah,
see
let's.
myself by that lake side. Like I want that beautiful view in my future travels as well. So
Yeah,
thanks
would
so
love to.
much. Thank you for being my guest today. I love chatting with you.
Thank you very much for having me, Karina. It's lovely.